Hey guys, so today's repair is going to be a little bit different. We're working on a iMac that came in, and I'm starting this out by just voicing this whole thing over. And we're going to voice it over because, well, it had to be done in stages over several hours. And that's the reason that this is actually called the dark side of Apple repair. There's a lot that goes into this particular repair that I'm doing here. But just to kind of dig in and explain real quick what we're dealing with is what you're seeing me do right now is take basically a mini pizza cutter and cut away adhesive on the screen of this 27-inch iMac from Apple. And the reason I'm having to do this is because everything that you need to get access to for this particular job lives behind the screen. And when things live behind the screen, it tends to complicate the repair quite a bit. So, as you can see, I'm trying to be gentle with it, not try to pry too much, because if you pry too much, you can break the glass. It is extremely, extremely fragile. And even if there is already the slightest little nick in the glass from something bumping the edge previously, and you go to use this little pizza cutter, you can crack the glass all the way down. And it doesn't break the screen, but the glass on the surface cracks, and that's just annoying. So you'll probably notice I keep spraying the pizza cutter thing throughout. All this really is a tiny little plastic wheel with a really sharp edge, and I'm applying isopropyl alcohol to it. And the reason I apply isopropyl alcohol is because it helps to dissolve some of that glue a little faster, or at least reduce the stickiness a little faster, and it's a 99% solution. So you'll see that it slides fairly easily, and this comes loose pretty quickly. I'm not even fast forwarding this right now, so. As you can tell, I'm trying to work with it a little bit. I try to, the way that I like to do it is simply to pull the three sides, the top and the two sides. And the reason I do that is because I don't want to have to take the whole screen out, because it's actually infinitely more difficult if you have to remove the entire screen and then put it back in. The reason being is because you have to line everything up perfectly side to side, and that is a bear. So what you want to make sure you have is something soft like a towel, like I have laying on my desk there. And then when you're ready to actually pull the screen down, your towel can be where the screen gently rests while you work on the computer. Now you might be thinking to yourself, why are you going through all this trouble? What repair are you actually doing? That's a fair question. The repair for this iMac is a drive replacement, and it is probably one of the most common and most needed things in these iMacs. These iMacs come with an old 3.5-inch hard drive from Apple, and the 3.5-inch hard drive tends to slow down and fail quite a bit after so many years. Now, they're manufactured really well, I'll give them that, but it's manufactured by Seagate, and they fail. They fail. It's inevitable. Hard drives will always fail because they're a mechanical component, as most things do after a period of time. So it's important to recognize that. And my customer brought me a new Samsung 2 terabyte 870 Evo drive for me to put in here for him. So that's what this repair is all about. We're installing macOS on a new hard drive or a new SSD and replacing that old faulty hard drive. So as you can see here, we're starting to get really close, really close. So essentially what has to happen here is this is kind of a final check of the adhesive. You can see it's pretty dusty inside that computer, and you're probably like, how do you get so much dust inside a computer that's sealed so tightly? There is a fan on the back side, and that fan brings in, there's a grate on the back side, and the fan brings in a fair bit of dust through that. So I like to lean it back and then carefully manipulate that glue again with that pizza cutter. It's important to make sure that you're doing it just so it doesn't fall. Make sure you support it. I've also had situations in the past where it falls and then it breaks a solder connection on the board, and you don't want to break a solder connection on the board. You can see those thin ribbon cables there. are definitely a danger point for this, and it's just something that you have to be mindful of and know that it's there if you're going to do this repair. If this is something you're looking to do yourself and you don't care if the Mac gets potentially ruined, go for it, but I typically don't recommend people attempt this repair at home, because this is a pretty high level repair. So if you can wedge your hand in there to pull out the connector on the board, it's right there. That's the easiest way to do it. And then essentially just lay it down gently, scoot it back on my desk, and rest it on that towel. And you can see I did that really carefully. All right, so the next step here is showing you that's what we're removing. You can see that big silver thing right there. Yep, that's the hard drive. And that is going to get replaced with an SSD. So I did have to remove the speaker screws there. I did that off camera unintentionally. I thought I was recording, guess I wasn't. So right now I'm just removing the screws and laying them in order for the hard drive retention brackets, so that way when I go to plug everything back in later, I know exactly where those screws are supposed to go. And that lower right hand corner screw, not really necessary because the bracket on the right hand side does not fully come out anyway. Realistically, you want to just undo that top one on the right hand side, and then you should be good. But it's kind of locked under that retention bracket's kind of locked under the motherboard there. And you pull that SATA cable, and you notice that left bracket just fell down. And you kind of wiggle it a little bit to get it out of there. Having the speaker tilted off to the side gives you a little bit more clearance to work with. And this is where I fiddle a little bit with things, trying to pull that bracket out. It's been a while since I've done the repair, so I'm like, oh yeah, that doesn't come out. That stays in there. And there it is, the removed 1 terabyte Seagate hard drive. And now there are 4 little retention screws that go into the side of the bracket on either side of the hard drive. If you are planning to replace the hard drive with an SSD, just make sure that whatever drive cradle you are putting it in has those screws screwed into it, just like that. And I thought I documented myself screwing that SSD into those retention brackets, but I guess I didn't, and lost footage. So anyway, the SSD is going back in pretty well. And that's it right there. You can see it takes up a significant less amount of room inside of the case. And so basically I have these brackets here that I put SSDs in, and it reduces it gives me the ability to basically mount a 2.5-inch drive in a 3.5-inch drive bay. All right, so that's screwed in. So we'll put the screws for the speaker back in now. And just feeling everything, making sure it looks good. So the next step in this process is a bit of a headache. And the next step is one of the most important parts of this entire repair. And the reason I say it's a bit of a headache is because it's probably the second most complicated part of this repair. The hard drive replacement's easy, swapping for an SSD is easy, even moving data over from one computer to another, piece of cake. This is pulling all the old adhesive off of the computer. And so you do have to make sure that the surface is clean before you apply new adhesive back to the computer. So what you're going to do is, I have a little metal spudger thing there, and I like to just get under the edge and pull it all off at once there. But that's not the only side that you'll be pulling the adhesive off of. You'll also have to pull it off of the screen, which I'll show you here in just a bit. But what you're going to see happen here is I'm just going to start kind of trying to get under the edge there, and as soon as I've got a good enough lip up, I tend to just grab it with my fingers and pull it all the way down nice and slowly. I don't have many fingernails in this video, so it's a little more tough for me. And you can see it just leaves kind of a bare black surface afterwards. And that's exactly what you want. Doing this having the screen down like this does not damage the adhesive on the bottom. It's not ideal, but the adhesive on the bottom is really a stability adhesive to kind of hold things in place down there, side to side, alignment wise, because your glass has to align perfectly in order for it to work the way it's supposed to. So this side here comes off in a couple different pieces just because it's a little thinner and it's not always a perfect art. You can see I'm still trying to get that lip up on there, and then grab it with my fingers and pull slowly. There you go. And parts of the adhesive go over that Wi-Fi antenna and over the Bluetooth antenna as well. Important to note that too. And then the next step after I get all this adhesive off is actually going to be pulling it off of the screen, maybe? Or no, it's going to be applying the new adhesive. You can see, grab the lip, pull it down. And I think this one ripped on me if I remember right. Yeah, right there. It gave up the ghost on me right there. Oh no, it did it twice. And then so I had to start peeling again down by the bottom on that right hand side. I'm really sorry this is not a better perspective for you guys. Still working out the kinks with my Sony camera, and this is my Insta360 camera that I'm using to record this. So you're still getting that 4K experience. It's just there's just not a good place to put things necessarily when you're trying to do a repair like this. I can't really have a camera in front of my face because I have to be able to see what's going on, and if I mount it to my head, then it's going to be really shaky. And there we go. The adhesive removal is complete from the frame of the PC anyway, or from the frame of the Mac. I like to say PC too much. All right. Alright, so this is an adhesive kit that you should purchase if you are going to plan on doing this repair. Now, the adhesive kits are, I want to say, between 15 to 20 bucks for this particular iMac. Basically, it replaces the factory adhesive, and you're probably like, Brandon, can I just use glue? Or can I just use an adhesive that I have on hand already? You probably. But I've had cases where people didn't want to pay for the adhesive kit and instead they just wanted a glue. And I warned them against it and said that I would not be liable for any damage to the computer. And they took it home, and after using a really strong double-sided tape, the screen fell off and it broke. And that's not what we wanted to deal with here. So I like to use this factory adhesive kit. I don't know what's so specific about it. But it always works really great, and for the $15 to $20 it saves your 5K resolution screen on your iMac. So highly recommend, because you don't want to take this home and have your screen fall off. It's not a fun thing, not a pretty thing. So the rest of this particular clip is just going to be me trying to basically apply those adhesive strips, which they can be a bit of a challenge, and the one in the upper right there was definitely the hardest one. But you can kind of see what you have to do. There's these little holes on the iMac, and you can probably see them like in the upper left-hand corner there. But you take a pair of tweezers, and the adhesive strips have holes in them as well. And if you shove the tweezers through and into the corresponding hole on the iMac, it makes application quite a bit easier. So you'll apply that top half, rub it in real good, and then pull back a little bit to realign if you need to, and then basically take that tab that sticks out at the bottom, and you'll pull that and push down on the adhesive at the same time, just making sure to keep everything in alignment. just because you don't want to end up with adhesive that exceeds the screen or anything like that. Yeah, and sometimes those little strips that are on the adhesive get stuck to your hands, so you got to shake them off while you're trying to do this, and that gets a little bit annoying. And again, I'm applying the adhesive to the bottom as well. There we go. All right, so I'm not going to sit here and belabor the adhesive point or force you guys to continue to watch it. So we're just going to kind of fast forward through this. I struggled a lot with this upper right-hand corner, as I previously mentioned. So the rest of it went on pretty smoothly after that. And I guess I'll probably show you here shortly what that looks like. Finally. Here we go. And this is what the entire Mac looks like with the adhesive strips applied, except for that upper right-hand corner. So now we're moving on to removal of the old adhesive from the screen. And it's more of the same, but you just have to be a little more careful because you're working on the back of glass as opposed to working on the metal or silly like that black plastic framing that goes around the outside. So it is a lot of lifting and pulling carefully. Only you don't get to push as hard with the metal spudger to pull things up. So makes it even a little more challenging. And if you hit this wrong, or if your metal spudger nicks it on the backside, you can wind up with cracked glass. Because like I said, the glass is very fragile. Very fragile. And so you can see I'm trying to adjust even my angle for trying to remove that adhesive down on the corner, because the corner on these iMacs is a really weak spot. And again, this is another one of the reasons why this video is titled The Dark Side of iMac Repair, because doing literally anything with this iMac apart from upgrading your memory, it requires a lot of care, because you have to do this every single time. Remove all the adhesive, add it all back. If you need to replace a fan inside the iMac, you have to do it this way. You have to remove the adhesive. You got to put it all back on. So Apple did do a good job of making things last, which kudos to them, because this is a 2017 iMac, and this is a hard drive from 2017 that went in the machine, and it's still working. You know, it was still working up to this point. It was just working slow, but it was still working. So, and right now I am scraping more adhesive off and pulling. And so I'd like to say that it's more exciting. In a moment here, we'll stand this back up after all the adhesive's been removed. And we'll put the iMac screen back on. Alright, here's a welcome camera adjustment. Just doing that last little side of adhesive removal off the back of the screen. And the reason you want to make sure you do this is just so you get that, again, really good adhesion. Because you don't want to risk it. You don't want to risk taking it home and having the screen fall off. And man, that would be embarrassing. Like the one time it happened, I told my customer, I was like, there's a high risk of this happening. And he brought it back and he's like, oh, it's fine. It's no big deal. But let's do it. He wound up buying the adhesive kit anyway. So there we go. And those other two strips you're seeing sitting on the back of the screen there, those are for the bottom. And like I said, that's not going to be necessary because we didn't take off the bottom adhesive. We bent it a little bit, but we didn't actually damage anything. So I'm moving everything out of the way so I can stand up and actually get this screen put back into position here. Because that is the next step. I love showing you guys this content. Sorry if this is a really bad view. I think I'm about to change it. There we go. usually like showing you guys exactly how things go. So what I'm doing right now is reconnecting that LCD cable. That's kind of like your 30 or your 40 pin connection there. And then after that one, I believe it's the camera, like the webcam cable. You know, it's so funny, these iMacs, after working on regular all-in-ones, I typically expect the iMac to be touchscreen, but I always forget that it's not. And so it's one of those things where I wind up being like, why isn't this working? Alright, so this is the tricky connector I was telling you guys about, that you could potentially rip off the board if you're not careful. But I'm plugging it back in, trying to be gentle. And then right now you see the white strips where it says 11 and 16. Those are coming off, and they're coming off because we have to expose the adhesive to match that upper right hand corner. On all sides. Well, if you guys like this content, I just want to say, please give this video a like. Smash the like button, give us a subscribe, because a subscription to our channel means a great deal to us. Or a subscription to my channel means a great deal to me, I should say, because I'm just one person. But I love bringing you guys special content like this with a MacBook or an iMac where you can actually see how it's torn down. Next step here is just installing macOS on that SSD. And then after that, we're home free. Setup time. So anyway, thank you guys for watching, and have a great day. Don't try this at home.